I'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, then we'll start with the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting, December 12th, 2016. Does anybody have any corrections they'd like to suggest? Seeing none, then we will, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting, December 12th, 2016. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Then we'll move to approval of the general fund vouchers, 74-125 through 74-228, voiding 74-155. Wire transfers 161-70208 through 161-70241, and activity fund vouchers 2604 through 2632. I will entertain a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the general fund vouchers as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. And we'll move on to the public comments and public comments on the agenda items. Anybody have anything you wanted to share? Okay, then we'll move on to the Spotlight on Education, the Empty Bowls program.
Okay. We had the empty bowls right before break, and the event brought in $3,380, which has been donated to Polk County Salvation Army to help fund the backpack program that we put on through the district here. So it was really a successful event. Huge thank yous to a lot of people. There was a lot of people involved. The Clear Lake Art Department, led by Holly Waterman, the Clayton Art Department, all the ministerial groups for donating the soups that were served during the event. Mrs. Waterman and Mrs. Grote helped organize it and got all the supplies for the event, so huge thank you to them. And then all the individuals that came and supported the event itself. It was just a fun atmosphere. I got to go with my kids and eat some good soup, and then it ended up being, due to the cancellation of the Clayton doubleheader, we ran it during the Amory game. So we still had a great turnout and a lot of people that were involved. All the teachers as well that donated their time to help run the event. So very neat program, the backpack program, which is where all the money goes towards. So huge thank you to everyone that was involved.
Very good. Any discussion? Okay, then we'll move on to our new business, a review of the 2015-16 audit review.
Okay, Mrs. Schultz came in, so I'll turn it over to her to speak on the audit.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to your meeting today to go over the financial results. Just a comment on the documents that you have. You do have, I believe in your binders, you have a one-page...
At the very end of it's at the first section, but the last part of the audit section.
Yep. So you have a one-page, kind of front and back summary, and we'll spend most of our time going over that. The full set of financial statements is about 65 pages, so we're going to try not to go through that unless somebody has some specific questions. We'll just focus on this handout. We have that. Okay. So just a word about the timing. All school district financial statements are generally due December 1st to the state. This year, though, because of the delay in getting information on the Wisconsin retirement system from WRS and their auditors, the Legislative Audit Bureau, that date has been extended a number of times. So now we are down to, the reports are actually due to the state tomorrow. Your reports were dated Friday. They were, I believe, printed and bound and everything today. So the electronic versions were submitted to DPI today. But just because of the timing of when we needed drafts to go in your kits, you do have reports that are marked draft, but there were no changes whatsoever to what you have other than the final signatures and the final date, which was Fridays, I think Thursday or Friday's date. So even once the WRS audit report came just before Christmas, we received a note saying that There was an error in those reports, so hold on issuing. So it's really been an interesting year trying to get all school districts in the state, because they all are waiting for that report from Wisconsin Retirement System. So, very, very unusual. So I just wanted to explain the lateness kind of the report. And all school districts are in exactly the same boat. We were not given the okay from WRS until last Wednesday. As far as how to quantify. There was an error in Wisconsin Retirement System's audit report, but finally on Wednesday they told us how to calculate the error for each individual school district. Those amounts ended up being really peanuts for all the school districts that we work with, so we were able to proceed with issuing as we had planned. So. To spend a little bit of time here talking about your financial statement highlights, looking at this one-page handout that we have, the first page is almost entirely on the general fund. So I think, actually, let's see the other page. The page with the graph on it is the one that, okay. So probably the most significant number in any school's financial statement is fund balance in your general fund. The recommendations from the Government Finance Officers Association are that any unit of government maintain between 15 and 50% of fund balance in your general fund, just to weather your cash flow needs and to have available for unexpected items. So the top half of this first page looks at your total fund balance, which is $1,340,000, and that number is up just slightly from the previous year. You did have a very small surplus in fiscal 16, which we'll look at in a minute. The metric that we look at is a percentage of that as percentage of your fund balance as of your expenditures. So you're 21.77%. That is within the recommended range of just over the 15% recommended range, and your amount you can see on the graph is very similar to last year, so your fund balance has maintained a stable position, but it is on the lower end of the range, so maybe just something to keep in mind as you're working on budgets, to maybe think twice before using fund balance to apply in your budget, because you are kind of getting to the lower end of that, but you are within what we would expect to see for a range. Moving on to the next section. This is a comparison of your 2016 actual results compared to your budget. So you did have a very small surplus, $11,309 in the general fund. Your total revenues and your total expenditures were almost right on your budget, just very, very small differences, as you can see. So I think you did a nice job of keeping within your amended budget for the year. The bottom part of this page summarizes your cash and investments for all the activities of the district. The total cash at the end of 2016 was just over $1.4 million, which is down slightly. It's down about $122,000, which is almost directly related to the spending of the referendum dollars. So those were spent out as planned, in this case for paving parking lots. So that was planned referendum money that you were going to spend down. So that fairly stable cash position. On the second page, is looking at the different other funds that the district has, and in some cases there's not a lot of activity from a dollar standpoint going on in these. The first section are your special revenue funds. This is your special education fund. Teach Grant is on there. That actually ended in 2013, so you can skip over that one. Your food service fund and your community service fund. So you have total fund balances in this category of $124,000. Both of those food service and community service fund balances are up in 2016, so both of them had surpluses. Food service had about a $28,000 surplus. In that case, your expenses were right on budget and revenues were a little bit higher than what had been anticipated. Your community service fund also had about a $20,000 surplus. And there you had not only revenues were slightly higher than you planned, but you also had expenditures that were just slightly under budget as well. So both of those did increase some fund balance during the year. Your debt service funds, both your general and your non-referendum debt, your spending in these, all the activity in those was right as predicted in budget, as we would expect. Your fund balance is very stable in your debt service funds. And your capital projects funds both ended 2016 with a zero fund balance, spending of your prior year funds as planned in your budget. The bottom half of this page takes a look at your general long-term debt. We have a couple of calculations here that we look at to kind of look at the amount of debt that districts have, how your debt service expenditures compare as a percentage of your total budget. So for 2016, your general obligation debt just over $13 million. That's down about $650,000 due to your payments during the year. No new debt, and that is 64.6% of your legally allowable debt limit. So that number last year was just over 70%, so that number has come down very nicely from the last couple of years. And that legal amount is 10% of your equalized value is what you're legally able to borrow. That number, we like to see that 70 or less is what I think bonding rating agencies will say. So I think having that number come down is a good indicator. The next section, the last information on there, is looking at your percentage of debt service expenditures compared to your total non-capital expenditures. And bond rating agencies will recommend about 20% or less. So of your total budget, less than 20% should be debt service expenditures. And you're just over 13%. That amount is down just slightly from last year. That number did jump up quite a bit in 15 because of the new debt and the new debt service from some of your 2014 borrowing. But still, you're well within range of the 20% or less benchmark. So I think that's a good indicator that the debt service that you have is reasonable for the size of your budget. So any questions on the financial results? And again, all these numbers come directly out of the financial statement document itself. I tried to pull just the key information that I thought you would find valuable out of there. So.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. And then the other document that we issue is the communication to those charged with governance and management, which I believe is the document right before this. The majority of this report are standard disclosures about the audit process and about the audit results, things that we're required to disclose, a lot of boilerplate type language. So I'll just go over a few high points. If you go to page 1, so during the audit,
Is this page 1 of the first document?
page 1 of the first document. It should be like a letter that's addressed to the school board. There you go.
3 pages in.
They just get longer every year.
Well, I flipped 4 pages and I've only gained 1 page.
We have a lot of divider pages, and that is required by standard. Almost everything in this letter is required by standard, including dividing the different things of information in different sections. So this letter talks a little bit about the work that we do related to the district's internal controls. So what checks and balances you have in place over your payroll system, over your disbursement system, over your month end or year end close process. So the testing that we do over your internal control is pretty limited. We're looking at what the checks and balances are in place just to design the extent and the type of audit procedures we're doing. So we're not doing an extensive test on your controls. We're doing somewhat of a limited test. But during that process, if we find areas that are weak, and we feel it's a significant area, we do need to disclose those in writing. So that's what this letter is doing. And similar to what we've had in other years, we are disclosing 2 material weaknesses. The first one being internal control environment, which is essentially a lack of segregation of duties. And I do have detail on that on the next few pages. And I will say that the number of areas that we saw issues with are less than what we saw last year. There were a number of improvements. And the second one is internal control over financial reporting. Anytime the auditor is drafting the financial statement documentation, we are required by standards to add that as a material weakness. So this is something that certainly for a district your size is extremely common. I work with about 45 units of governments ranging of all different sizes, and I think I have 2 that I don't include this that actually draft their own financial statements. So you're not at all unusual in that. That's common practice for a small unit of government. So to go to page 2. So page 2 is lists the details of the areas that we thought that the segregation of duties is not what it should be. And if you were to compare this to the report issued last year you would have seen a lot more things on this list. So I commend the district for making some improvement and adding some additional controls, especially in the area of payroll. So we were able to take a number of points out of this letter this year. So the 2 remaining items in this letter, the first one under controls over payroll, this relates to the calculation of the accrued payroll. I think Lori is calculating your accrued payroll as well as all your year-end balances, and nobody really is on staff to review and to check those computations. So that's really a limitation of the district's staffing size. And the second one is under controls over period close, relates to account reconciliations. Ideally, every balance in your financial statement would have an account reconciliation, and that would be reviewed by someone who isn't responsible for the day-to-day transactions. Now, in a small district, that is very, very difficult to accomplish. I will say that your bank reconciliation, which we think is the most important reconciliation, that is reviewed by a second person. So we're really happy that control has been in place and continues to be in place. So
who's that person that does that?
I believe the administrator is has done that. Okay, so that's a really key control. So we're glad to see that in place. So there were several comments in the payroll area that have been removed due to some additional controls. And there was also one, the last few years you've had a number of larger projects and contracts, and we had a point related to review of those contracts and retainages. So that has been removed kind of with some of those bigger projects being complete. Okay, so any questions on these?
What would you recommend, or who would you recommend to be the year-end accrued payroll calculator?
I think Lori calculates that now.
But you said we should have an independent.
You should have somebody else reviewing all your account reconciliations, including your accrued payroll calculation.
Okay.
Whether there's anyone who takes. I think when you have one person that's responsible for your accounting controls, there may not be a person on staff really to do that.
About the treasurer on the board, would that be something?
Yeah. I think could.
Or even the
could
board,
do that
the
if
board
there
itself,
was a desire to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you would recommend another set of eyes on that?
It would be a best practice. Whether or not it is something that is feasible, I think with all these controls, account reconciliations also, there would be a way you could probably have somebody review all of those, but from a cost-benefit perspective, I think you have to think about, first of all, who's going to do it, who's going to take on that amount of work, is the person reviewing it, do they know enough about the subject matter and what they're reviewing that they would catch some sort of error in the computation. So I think those are the questions to answer. But if certainly there's a reasonable solution to have another set of eyes on those calculations, that's something I think to think about. But again, this I know this kind of came up last year too, that these are things that this isn't changing your audit opinion at all. These are just things that that I think all of you just if these continue, it's just something for you to keep in mind, because anytime there's a small place, the board and the oversight that all of you have really is your extra check and balance and your extra kind of set of eyes on all the information. So.
Kim,
Yes.
If we were to find somebody to to review these, what type of credentials, in your opinion, would this person need to have?
I would say someone with a basic understanding of accounting and I guess full accrual accounting, basic understanding of payroll and the reports and the calculations.
So would they need to have the credentials of being an actual accountant, or is it something that a layperson could interpret?
That's a good question. I've never run into a situation like that.
In order to fit
I think
the
it
standard?
depends. If whoever has experience in accounting matters, financial matters, I think they wouldn't necessarily have to be someone who has an accounting degree or anything like that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, if at any time you're thinking of changing procedures and you want to, run that by us or have, Lori or Josh run something by us, certainly if you have a change in mind, certainly we'd be happy to take a look at that before you change something just to see what it looks like.
Okay.
The only other thing, there really isn't anything else in this report that I wanted to cover other than to say that we had no material audit adjustments this year. So that's a really great accomplishment. So I give kudos to Lori for doing a really nice job with your monthly and your year-end financial statements. I think we had just a handful of small adjustments, but nothing nothing significant in size. So that's really great. Any other questions?
I think that's it.
Okay, and your final bound books, will be shipped. I'm not sure if they went today, but they'll go tomorrow for sure. So they have been submitted to DPI.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Kim.
coming in, Kim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Nice
you.
to officially meet you.
Yeah, thanks. Good to see you.
Nice job, Lori.
Yeah, Lori, thank you. Okay, now then we'll move on to the approval of our 2017-18 district calendar.
Okay, so the last document in the handout, you'll see the proposed 2017-2018, which just sounds crazy to say, but school calendar. So a couple changes this year. We have had a calendar committee. We've kind of the major change is if you look at the teacher in-service days, the green circled numbers, we've moved to all full-day in-services rather than the half-day in-services. The student contact has changed, has gone from 180 down to 177, but the actual hours, which is the DPI requirement, has only gone down a little bit. This year we currently have 1,170 hours. Next year the proposal would be 1,162 hours. So there's a small change in the student contact time, but we're still about the equivalent of a three-day cushion for what's required through DPI. So this is the proposed district calendar, and then on top of that I would propose, I know it's been talked about even prior to me being here, is the inclement weather makeup days. So I would propose at this time that right now we currently in the teacher and support staff handbook, it's the first day, it goes every other day is made up. So the first day is not made up, the second day is, the third day is not, and the fourth day is. So I would propose that the first two inclement weather days not be made up, and the second two be made up, just because we do have that cushion. So then the last day of school would fall on that early release day of June 5th.
That makes sense. I've always wondered about the every other
Yep.
day. To me, it makes sense just to not make up the first two, and if you've got the cushion.
Would we need to change any policies to make that happen?
We would, no, just I would look for your approval on it, and then we'd make the change, the verbiage. We'd change in the handbooks when those would come to you
Okay.
for the fall next year.
Okay, so we're looking for both the approval of the calendar and then also a change to the
inclement weather
Inclement
makeup
weather
days. Knowing right now we're pretty set with these, but there's an outside chance that the parent-teacher conference dates on this calendar may change, but I don't see that happening. I think we're pretty set.
Okay. Would we need
Wouldn't
to
change anything on
No.
vacations or time off, any of that. It's just a matter of when those conferences fall. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, would we need to post that as a separate item, or
What's that?
the inclement weather days? Does that need to get done today, or
It doesn't. It could come with the handbooks. Just wanted to kind of get your feedback on it. I mean,
Okay.
you certainly could make a motion today, but it would be fine to approve it within the teacher handbooks and the support staff handbooks.
when we get to that
Yeah.
point? Okay, so
When do those come up?
Come up, I believe, in the summer. We review them, and then
Okay, this is for the next year.
yeah. So then you guys can look at the exact verbiage of what's listed in the two handbooks and approve it at that time is fine too.
Okay, well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm down with it. Eddie, you think you guys are down with it too? Okay. So then I'll look for a motion to approve our 2017-18 calendar then.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Do I hear a second? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the 2017-18 district calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And then we'll move on to the verification of school board election declaration and ballot placement.
Okay, so the board needs to verify the two candidates running for the April school board election. The incumbent, Mr. Greg Frenchu, will be appearing on the ballot along with Mr. Kevin Skip Grosskreutz. Is that
Who is with us
Is that
today,
right?
Kevin? Thanks for coming in, Skip.
So the order of appearance on the ballot will need to be determined by placing the two names in a hat and drawn to see who's going to be listed first on the ballot.
Want to be first? Yeah. Or does anybody have a hat?
I'm not 100% positive if you have to draw or not, but I would probably
I guess
draw
we got to
just
hold
be-
on to a few of our traditions.
Just fold them, mess them up.
Skip's got a hat on.
There you go.
Is that a conflict of
Fold 'em up.
interest?
It's the right kind of hat,
It's got the Packers, we're doing good.
Probably
Be his hat, and you can draw the
Right.
name.
Stir that for me, Mr. Wire.
I didn't pick.
Gonna pick?
Yeah, you can pick two, huh? This is for the first position then.
This would be listed first on the ballot.
Okay, don't look.
Go ahead. Official. Do we need to put a hat on his head?
No.
There you go. Read it, Mr. Wire.
Greg French.
You can keep the card though. All right, now that we got that official business done. Skip, thank you for the interest. All right, is there anything more, Mr. Ernst, about the verification of school board election declaration ballot placement?
Nope, I don't believe so. I think that's it.
All right. Then the next item on our agenda is the approval of the 2016-17 administration salary increase. But there's some conversations that we'd like to have in closed session, so I recommend that we come back out of closed session and deal with that one at that time.
Sounds good.
So then we'll move on to our superintendent notes. Mr. Ernst?
Okay. All right, so I already mentioned the empty bowls, which was a huge thank you to all those that participated in that. Some basketball games. We had the two Clayton games were canceled due to inclement weather. The boys basketball won against Amory. They also won the Glenwood City Holiday Tournament, went 2-0 over there, and also won against Birchwood. The girls basketball team is on a roll. They have a W against Webster. They won against Bruce, against Cumberland. The Clayton game was canceled. They won against Birchwood, and they have the makeup. No, I'm sorry. The boys have the makeup game tonight, actually, at home, and the girls' makeup game is on the 12th at home. The wrestling had a very close duel against Spring Valley. It was a very tough team. They ended up with a loss, but had a good duel meet. They won against Luck Frederick Grantsburg Siren, that duel. Osceola was canceled due to inclement weather. And a nice turnout at the Northern Badger, the holiday tournament over break, with 2 in the finals and brought home 1 champion. And then took 3rd in their division, I believe 5th overall in the tournament, which is a good sized holiday tournament. And then this last weekend took 1st at the New Richmond tournament, so they're on a roll as well. So our sports, all 3 teams right now are doing very well and fun to watch. Upcoming events, we have sports. We have on the 10th, we have girls and boys basketball, a doubleheader against Northwood. Wrestling at Turtle Lake on the 12th. Boys basketball against Cameron on the 13th. Wrestling at Chippewa Falls on the 14th. Girls basketball is a home one on the 16th against Elmwood Plum City. Girls basketball at Cameron on Tuesday the 17th. Wrestling home against Unity on the 19th. And then a doubleheader, girls, boys basketball against Prairie Farm on the 20th. And then a couple in-house things that we have, the PTO Family Fun Night on the 16th at 5:30. Spirit Week in the high school, both buildings are going to kick off on the 16th. I think board members are allowed to go to Bomber Ball if they would like. And then quarter ends on January 20th, and then full in-service day on January 23rd for the teachers. So
The doubleheaders, are they split up between the gyms, or they play back-to-back in one gym?
back-to-back in both gyms.
JV in the elementary and varsity over here.
Oh, okay. Nice, a lot of stuff going on this time of year. Okay. Is that all, Mr. Ernst?
That is all.
All right, then we'll move on to our future agenda items. Has anybody been pondering any things that we should be talking about? Okay, then we will move on to our contemplated closed session section of the meeting, where I ask and invite our guests to go home. And so in accordance with thanks for coming, by the way. And in accordance with WSS 19.85, paragraph 1C, considering employment compensation or performance data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Employment compensation and performance of an employee will be the subjects of our conversation. So, thanks, you guys.
Have a good night.
All right, well, once again, an open session. I will entertain a motion to increase Chris's salary 1%.
I wordsmithed that a little bit, but just off of what we did for the teachers the week before, or the meeting before.
To increase the principals as we did the teachers.
Yeah.
With the 1% raise.
Right. Well, wherever it is in here. I just
Peter,
copied.
actually, yeah, go ahead and make the motion the way that it should be.
All right. A motion to approve a 1% increase of Chris Peterson's contract. I think that's all I said. So, yeah.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to increase Chris Peterson's contract 1%
This year.
for this year.
2016-17 school year.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All opposed? Motion passes, and now I'll entertain a motion for Nick. Pete, would
A
you be
motion
so
to
kind?
approve a 1% increase plus the 1.2% increase as negotiated for Nick Gillis's 2016-17 contract.
Do I hear a second?
As negotiated at time of hire.
At time of hire, okay.
All right, so properly moved and seconded to increase Nick Gillis's contract 1%, and then another 1.2% as prior negotiated with Nick's contract. All
Aye.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.